Well, hello everybody. Hello, Molly. Molly's from Toronto. Do me a favor, share it out. Share, share, share. Welcome to everybody on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and all of the platforms on Facebook. I think there's 5 of them. Hello, Tracy. Good to see you. So, a little bit of housekeeping before we get rolling. Salim hasn't made it in here yet. November 4th, March Against Agenda 2030. I'm hoping people far and wide are putting together plans so in their communities they can march against Agenda 2030. This thing has to be massive to have any effect. Hello, Anne from London. Hello, Ute Eagles. Good to see everybody. Hello, Dorothy. I'm good. Yeah, we had a good week. Oh, Salim sees me, but he's not backstage yet. I sent you the link to your messenger, Salim. So, thanks, Julie. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, Buffalo Party. It's in your, it's Facebook Messenger, Salim. It's there. I sent it to you. Um, there's a rumor floating around, started by Tammy Robert here in Saskatchewan. She seems to think that Scott Moe may call an early election. She's suggesting that there might be even an election this fall. I don't share that with her. I think they're gonna make it for spring next year, maybe May or June. I don't see an election provincially happening in Saskatchewan anytime soon. Although the argument is pretty good. The more attention the Buffalo Party gets and the Sask United Party get, the harder it's going to be for the Sask Party to get elected. And I want to make something, just some other house cleaning. I've put together a Facebook page called Buffalo Party, Warman Buffalo Party Constituency Association, because we need to have a constituency association, a CA, in Warman, so that we can handle all of our political affairs. So anybody that's out there in the Warman area who would like to take part in building the Buffalo Party and building a constituency association, reach out to me. The Buffalo Party is attempting to put the power back into the hands of the people where it belongs. All of our policies, and I want to make this super clear, all of our policies are derived by the members. At our policy conventions, the leader isn't allowed to vote on policy. The board isn't allowed to vote on policy. It's strictly membership driven. And that's grassroots. And that puts the power back into the hands of the people where it belongs. And I can tell you, based on our policies, and I encourage you all to go have a look at our policies. Hello, Stephen. Our membership is very switched on. They get it. They understand the predicament that we're in. So we're attempting to put the power back into the hands of the people where it belongs. And we're obviously grassroots. And that's important because we're in an age where politicians don't seem to want to be accountable for anything. They won't answer questions. And a lot of that is our responsibility. We have to force them. You know, I ask in every town hall that I do, I ask the people in attendance, when was the last time your MP, your MLA, your Reeve or RM administration held a town hall event to answer the questions of the people? And the answer is always the same. Never. That's up to us. We have to force that to happen. We have to ensure that we're sending the message to our representatives that we're the boss and they need to do what we ask them to do. And we need to force them to have a town hall where the people can ask the right questions. So, yeah, 100%, Michelle. Buffalo Party's bottom up, unlike all other parties which are top down. 100%. Couldn't agree more. And so it's important, and that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to put the power back into the hands of the people, and that's why we exist, because that's what needs to happen. There isn't anybody that knows rural Saskatchewan better than the people that live in rural Saskatchewan. And those are the people that need to be involved. Those are the people that need to step up and take responsibility for the area and the community that they live in. So we have to do that. We have to come together and, again, put the power back into the hands of the people. So that's it. We're trying to build a constituency association for the riding of Warman. Anybody out there that's interested, we need a president, we need a secretary, and we need a treasurer. So if anybody is in that riding that is interested, contact me and let's get it done. All right, so without further ado, let's bring in my good friend Salim Mansour. Hello, Salim. Can you hear me?
Hello, Mark.
How are you?
Been some time, but it's so good to see you again.
It is good to see you.
Yes, I hear. Is this a delayed thing because I'm speaking and then there's an echo coming back to me?
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is. Let me see if I can fix it. There. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
It seems
you speak and then it comes.
It seems quite
not coming
delayed.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, it seems fairly delayed. I'm not sure why that is.
There's a delayed thing. Is our setting okay, Mark? Can you see your setting?
Yeah, I'm looking at it and everything seems to be fine. I'm not sure why you're getting the delay. How's your internet connection?
Yeah. My internet is. I mean, the connection is all okay. It is simply the delay, and I don't know what is happening because I'm not a tech.
You're not muted, are you, Salim?
No, I'm not muted.
No, I can hear you. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's happening.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we try to work through this problem.
Yeah. So let's get to why we're here tonight. Salim, if you want to just pop out and
Absolutely.
come back in again, let's try that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's try that. All right, we'll just wait. There he is. All right, let's try this. All right, how's that, Salim? Is that better? Hello? Can you hear me, Salim?
Hello, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yep, very good. Can you hear me?
I don't hear you, Mark. Are you speaking?
Yes, I am. I am speaking.
Are you there?
I am. You can't hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Salim? Hello? Can't hear me?
It. There's no sound. There's no sound.
That's really strange. How about now? Nothing? How about now?
Hello.
Can you hear me now? One sec. I bet you can hear me now. Can you hear me now?
there is no sound in this connection. There is no sound, but all my other things are working okay. Somebody's saying that he can hear me.
Yeah, it's very strange. I just did a
I
stream earlier and the sound was fine.
I can't hear you, Mark, but people are hearing us.
Yes, they're hearing you and they're hearing me. So I'm not sure why you can't hear me. Yeah, they can hear both of us, but you can't hear me.
I do not hear you. Hear you. Others can hear both of you.
All right, how about now, Salim? Can you hear me now? Nothing? Maybe pop out your earbuds.
Mark,
How about now? Can you hear me now?
I was here. I was here.
Salim, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? How about now, Salim? Can you hear me now? Nothing?
I don't hear you. I don't hear you.
Maybe take your earbuds out. How about now? Can you hear me now? Nothing? Did you disconnect them?
Speak.
Nothing, hey?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me now?
We hear you, but you don't hear me.
But I don't hear you.
No. Is your volume setting?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Mark. It is really weird. Can you hear me now?
Well, I hear you through on the phone, yeah. But
But
is your mic
is your mic
volume up?
volume up?
My
Your
well,
sound
Your
my
volume?
sound volume?
yeah, my mic, my external mic is on full volume. My MacBook Air is full volume. I, I can hear all other YouTube. I just went over to other YouTube channels and I could hear everything.
Everything okay? So
Yeah, I don't know. I can't
I can't
Are
seem to
you?
figure
seem to
this
figure
out.
this out.
Well,
There, now you're
There, now
hearing
you're
me.
hearing me.
I'm hearing you on the phone.
Oh,
We can do this on the phone if you want.
it won't
It
work
won't
as
work.
it won't work
It
as
won't work
well.
as well.
Well, what do we do then? Let me let me shut the phone off one more time.
Yep,
Yep,
Okay, can you hear me?
I hear
I
you.
hear you.
Oh, okay. Then I hear you too. So I don't know what was wrong. Let's see.
So now you hear me?
Let me get back my earphone. Can you hear me now?
I hear you. Can
No?
you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Okay, just let me see something else. I know there might be a problem here.
Yep,
Okay, can you hear me now?
I hear you loud and clear.
You can hear me?
I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
You hear me, but I'm not
You can't hear me.
hearing you. So
So I think it worked when you took the earbuds out. Unplug the earbuds.
speakers, audio, echo cancellation. Oh, okay, how is that now? Is there any sound?
Unplug the earbuds, Salim. No, you can't hear me.
Justin Trudeau is canceling us. Justin Trudeau is canceling us.
Okay, unplug your earbuds. Can you hear me now?
I have nothing on.
Did you unplug your earbuds?
I don't have my Bluetooth on. Bluetooth is off.
I'm gonna kick you out. Come back in.
Earplug is. I don't have it. Nothing.
Let's see if we can work this out. Yeah, he heard me there for a second, but hopefully he'll get it squared away here. All right,
All right, how's that? Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. How about you?
Yeah,
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so I don't know what was wrong. We were being jinxed by the deep state. The deep state was getting after us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most
most likely.
Well, they're following us. I'm sure they're following us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so let's get to the issue at hand here.
Yeah, let's do that.
So the
other day
we
we had everybody, all 338,
rise to applause for a Nazi in Parliament. And there they all are.
So what do you make of that, Salim?
Well, there's so many aspects to this that we need to talk about, or I would like to talk about what I make
Yes,
of it.
please.
There are several dimensions, and we have lost time. So I hope we can make time, but let's do our best. Well, one is this was waiting to happen. It was just a matter of time. This was absolutely predictable. Once the special military operation began in February 24, 2022, and the collective West, United States led NATO, the European Union, the G7 countries, Canada right in the middle of it all, had declared, gone into this proxy war against Russia. We were going to see this happen because the embrace of Nazi Ukraine was now completely public and open. There was no denying of it. I mean, they never talked about it in these terms, the leaders, but there was no denying about where the Ukrainian regime that the Americans had put into place in the coup that happened in January, February 2014, the Maidan coup. It was a direct play by the CIA, by Victoria Nuland in the Obama administration, Obama-Biden administration. So that was now completely open. There was no hiding of the fact. The coup removed an elected president, Yanukovych, and was replaced by a Ukrainian Nazi, Petro Poroshenko, in a full embrace. And then, of course, the Canadian public and the public in the West simply went around with the mainstream narrative that was put out by the government. All of media is simply the megaphone of the ruling class, the ruling elite, who are now in full partnership with the World Economic Forum. So this is an agenda of the World Economic Forum and of the NATO and the European Union. And the agenda was going all the way back to 1991, 1992, once the Cold War was over, to fully establish in due time the one world government, the new world order. These are all proclaimed. I mean, none of this is something that we're saying new today, this evening. You and I have been talking about this systematically with proof, with evidence from the people who have been leading the West, the collective West, beginning with President George Herbert Walker Bush, 41, who talked about the New World Order. And the process of New World Order, of one world government, run on the basis, not of international law, but on the basis of rule-based order, the rules that will be made by the World Economic Forum. And those rules will be implemented by the power of the United States as the empire. So that began immediately after the Cold War ended. The Soviet Union collapsed and disintegrated. And the process was simultaneously color revolutions and regime change, first in the global south, places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, etc., etc. Then in Europe, Serbia, Kosovo, and then in Georgia, they tried it. They failed in Georgia, but they tried it. And then, of course, in Ukraine, the main obstacle in the minds of the New World Order people was very simple and clear. The most formidable obstacle that had to be dismantled was Russia.
Right.
And so in 2014, the process now was anteed up. A regime change was brought in Ukraine, and Ukraine would become the battleground to dismantle, to bring about a regime change in Moscow and to dismantle Russia.
Well, and you.
So this battle, this was going on below the radar. The Western world media was not, informing the people. The Canadian media was not informing the Canadian people. You and I and all of us were was kept in the dark, except for those of us who were doing our independent research and following the independent news item. Okay, and then came the response from Russia, from Putin, the special military operation. And with that, the mask fell down. Ukraine was now the chosen instrument to take the war into Russia. But who are the Ukrainian people? Were not asking. The Ukrainian regime was a Nazi regime, is a Nazi regime. They themselves proclaim it. And so in 2019, when Zelensky got elected, the world went gaga about him. That he's the new Churchill. Suddenly Ukraine has a new Churchill. And then we went gaga about it. Canada went gaga about it immediately in 2022. So my opening remark was what happened on Friday, September 22nd in the Parliament was not something unexpected. It was predictable. It had already happened in April 2022 when, on a virtual connection, Zelensky addressed the parliament. Have people forgotten that? That was in April 2022. The special operation began in February 24, 2022. Zelensky spoke to the Canadian Parliament on a virtual hookup from Kiev, and all 338 members stood up and clapped and gave him a standing ovation.
Right.
There was not a single member in the 338 member parliament that said, isn't it time we at least examine what we are doing before we go ahead and do it, before we take a leap? There was no one. Instead, Pierre Poilievre came out of that standing ovation, and his attack on Justin Trudeau was that Justin Trudeau was not doing enough, that a conservative government will do more. What more? Anything that Justin Trudeau promises will be increased even further in terms of arms, equipment, and money in delivery to Zelensky. So this was about to happen. The second point is, very quickly, what happened on Friday, the mask was already down. What happened on Friday was a second invitation to Zelensky, a head of state of this Ukrainian Nazi regime, and the entire main institutions of the government was present in the gallery upstairs. You saw the picture of Yaroslav Hunka, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But in the lineup with him, if you want to play that thing back again, you will see on the extreme left of your screen the Chief of Defense Staff of the Canadian Armed Forces, General Wayne Eyre, standing. He's the bald-headed general standing in the extreme end of the. There you see him on the extreme head. Do you see? There's three people on the right of Hunka that is on the left screen, right of Hunka, right? Three people. The one, the bald-headed, is the Chief of the Defense Staff, General Wayne Eyre. Okay? We cannot see the person on the screen right now, but I am told the Deputy Commissioner of the RCMP is standing there. There are other senior members of the government all standing there, giving Zelensky and then when Yaroslav Hunka is introduced by the speaker to the house, everybody giving, and he's raising and pumping his hand, and everybody raising.
Right.
Now he's the hero. That's how Speaker Rota introduced him. He's a Ukrainian hero. He's a Canadian hero. He fought the Russian in World War II, and then he suddenly realized, did he misspeak? You know, if you play back the whole thing. Anyhow, the point is, there was a massive standing ovation. What has happened? We have been supping with the devil. We have been arming the devil. We have been singing the song of the devil. We have been dancing with the devil. We've been going to bed with the devil. We have become the devil. So you ask me, what do I make of it? This is the great irony. Almost 80 years after the end of World War II, in which Canadians fought to defeat Nazi Germany and the Axis power, the main institution of our country, the federal parliament, is standing and giving standing ovation to the devils.
Well, and there's no surprise, and like you said, this was bound to happen, and as we understand, the World Economic Forum, headed by Klaus Schwab, comes from Nazi stock. And when you go back to the Maidan protests and you watched as it progressed, more and more there were EU flags flying in the protests. So we knew at that point that this movement and that movement at the time was hijacked by globalists. This we know, and as I said, Klaus Schwab comes from Nazi stock. So it's no surprise that the collective West is now supporting a Nazi regime.
Mark, no hijacking. Please, you have to change your language. I have to change my language. There is no hijacking. This policy of one world government has been at play since before World War One. In World War One, President Woodrow ran for his re-election in 1916. The war began in 1914. He ran for his re-election in 1916 with the promise that he will keep America out of the war in Europe. That was his promise. He won the election on that promise. He got inaugurated in March of 2017. In those days, the inauguration used to take place in the month of March, not in the month of January. So he won the election in November 2016. He got inaugurated in November 2017. In April 2017, he declared the war on Germany. All right? He's the man who started the New World Order campaign. The language was different, but the agenda was the same. He's the man who initiated the making of the League of Nations. Right? The United Nations is the successor to the League of Nations.
Correct.
All right? So within this agenda is the one world government agenda. The World Economic Forum was founded in 1971. In 1968, Klaus Schwab came to America, to Harvard, as a student. He was born in 1938. He is the son of Eugene Schwab, who was a member of the German Nazi Party and a leading officer.
Yes.
So he comes in 1968. He is handpicked by the people, the one world government people, the Rockefeller, Rothschild people. He's handpicked in Harvard by Henry Kissinger, by John Kenneth Galbraith, by Herman Kahn. We have talked about this at length. So this is not a hijacking. The point is that while the Soviet Union was still around, the Cold War was still in its full phase. The irony is that the presence of Soviet Union inhibited and disciplined the collective West, because they couldn't speak about one world government at that time. So they were only thinking about the UN, the UN, and the UN. And Soviet Union is a member of the UN. It is one of the veto powers in the UN, and now China is a veto power in the UN. So they couldn't speak about a rule-based order. While Soviet Union was around, the language of rule-based order comes around with the neocons, the one world government people, after the Soviet Union had collapsed. So what I'm pointing out is the presence of Soviet Union kept the collective West, that is the NATO powers and the G7. Remember, for a little while, Soviet Union, that is Russia, after the collapse of Soviet Union, was invited to join the G7. So there was a G8. Putin attended the G8 conferences till after the 2007 Munich conference, where Putin challenged the advancement of NATO eastward towards Russia, when the leaders of Europe in 1990-91 had promised to Gorbachev that NATO will not advance 1 inch eastward. Who were the leaders? The leaders were the French leader, the German leader, the British leader, and the US president, that is George Bush, Francois Mitterrand, Helmut Kohl, and Prime Minister Major of England. All right. So when Putin reminded the European Union and NATO that you had made a promise that this is not going to go forward, that indeed, why do you need NATO? Why can't Russia become a member of NATO, because Russia is a European country?
Right.
Then what happened? Russia was kicked out of the G7. It was taken out. So there is nothing, what people have to understand, this is a long-standing agenda, because now the mask has fallen, the scale has opened, people have to wake up. You have to ask every single question about World War II, that this was an unnecessary war, this was a manufactured war, this was a war of the one world people.
Right.
So there is no agenda hijacking by the World Economic Forum. In fact, the World Economic Forum is the creation of the United States as an empire, and it's only with the power of the United States that the agenda of the World Economic Forum. It is like this: the World Economic Forum is the salesman of the agenda which was hatched and created in the United States and in Britain. This is the Anglo-American agenda. Remember, in 1945, the British Empire collapsed. Within 2 years, with the independence of India, there was no British Empire. People celebrate Winston Churchill as the greatest Prime Minister of Britain. Now we have to ask the question, is that true? Because it is under his watch. He went into war. He is the man who started the war. People have the narrative that the war started with Hitler going into Poland. Well, we have to now rediscuss that. We don't have the time tonight, but I hope, Mark, you will come back and we will talk about this thing. Sure. Because we have to understand what has happened. So, as I was saying, the ovation given to the Waffen SS is that the Second World War and the coming of the Soviet Union into the half of Europe as a result of the war stopped the agenda of the Third Reich. What is the agenda of the World Economic Forum or the One World Agenda? That is exactly the agenda of the Third Reich.
Right.
We're now
at the Fourth Reich.
It is now the Fourth Reich. Precisely, which begins with George H.W. Bush. So what happened was, for almost 80 years, the agenda was put on a pause. The pause was the Soviet Union winning the Second World War, and then the Cold War that followed after that. Okay,
right.
So the politics of the world from 1945 till 1991 was a politics of a bipolar world. not a unipolar world. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, immediately the Americans, the neocons, and the one world people started talking about the unipolar hegemony.
Right.
What is the counter response to the unipolar hegemony? Well, that is the BRICS nation, which we have to talk about. Canada is not a member of the BRIC nation. Canada doesn't want to talk about it. But the BRICS nation is the counter response. And what is that? What is that counter response? Multipolar world instead of a bipolar world, right?
Right.
And so once again, we are at a war. Who started the war? It was started by the one world people, the neocons.
Right.
But because the Anglo-American power is so great in the media, especially the English-speaking media, especially the Five Eye media,
Right.
Whoever controls the media controls the narrative. Back to George Orwell, back to 1984, the Ministry of Truth. The Ministry of Truth job is to turn lies into narrative and sell it as a truth. That's the double speak. War is peace, peace is war. Right? So we are living 1984. I mean, George Orwell was prophetic. What happened on Friday, September 22nd, the people saw. Now the question is whether the people can connect. Well, you and I, we are few voices trying to make the connection. The media is not making any connection. The media is trying to hide that fact.
No.
Exactly. So what happened was suddenly the people, you and I and everyone else who paying attention, witness that in our House of Commons, Waffen SS officers were being openly celebrated, no longer hiding about it. So the question is, was it the first time? Well, as I pointed out, this was not the first time. In April 2022, the leader of the Ukrainian Nazis was giving a standing ovation. But until this war began, all of this was hidden. We now know that Yaroslav Hunka and his comrades, over 1,000 of them, came to Canada immediately after the Second World War ended in Europe. That is, in May of 1945, the war ended, and these people arrived in Canada in the period immediately after 1945. Between 1945 and 1947, they arrived. And they arrived not as immigrants, they arrived not as migrants, they arrived not by being processed as immigrants and being vetted. They arrived secretly transported by the British and the American into Canada, as many of their comrades were transported to Australia, New Zealand, Britain, and the United States. Okay? So Yaroslav Hunka is not the first guy. Now he's the public face. There are so many other names. Tonight, let me mention a few names. This man, Peter Savaryn. His name is spelled Savaryn. Peter Savaryn was born in 1926. Yaroslav Hunka was born in 1925. He's 98 years old. Peter Savaryn was born in 1926, 1 year younger, 97. He died in 2017. He arrived at the same time, possibly on the same boat or airplane that brought Hunka to Canada, brought Savaryn to Canada. He was also a member of Waffen SS Galician Division. It is very likely that Hunka and Savaryn knew each other or were comrades in the same division or in the same company or in the same, contingent during the war. Savaryn had fought. He came to Canada, again, under the radar, and he became a lawyer. And the long and the short of it is that as a lawyer, as a Canadian lawyer, he achieved his own stature and was awarded the Order of Canada. Now, they would want us to believe, they would want the Canadian people to believe that Mr. Sovereign had no history before he arrived in Canada. Just as, Yaroslav Hunka has no history before he arrived in Canada. Okay. So who is then giving him the Order of Canada? The government of Canada. The committee that hands over the order is chaired by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So what sort of vetting took place? How does this man get the Order of Canada? How does this man ends up, before he was given the Order of Canada, as the Chancellor of the University of Alberta?
Right.
Okay.
There's a statue of him, isn't there?
There is a statue of him. There are scholarship for him, including scholarship fund for Yaroslav Hunka. University of Alberta has scholarship in their name. That's part of your prairie province, my friend. That's Alberta. You have then the man born in Saskatchewan. His father came from Ukraine. He came from Ukraine before the war. He became a very close friend of John Diefenbaker, and John Diefenbaker appointed him to the Senate. He couldn't get elected, so he remained in the Senate. His son, Ray Natashin, now you can remember the name, from Saskatoon, he was elected in 1974 to the parliament with Joe Clark, the Progressive Conservative Party, and then subsequently he was elected with Brian Mulroney in 1984 election and 1988 election. He lost the 88 election, and Brian Mulroney then nominated him, and he was appointed the Governor General, the first Ukrainian Governor General, in 1989. Do any one of us have to believe or need to believe that Ray Natashin, his father John Natashin, the people around John Diefenbaker did not know the prehistory of these people, their connections, like that of Peter Savarin, or of Yaroslav Hunka, or of the grandfather of Chrystia Freeland, Mikhail Chomiak, who was brought again in the same plane load. They came again to Canada. Mikhail Chomiak was directly working under the command of SS Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler in Krakow. Okay, his son-in-law, who is now retired, was a professor in one of the universities in Alberta, probably Calgary, if my memory serves me. I think his name is Himka. First name is missing me. It's Paul Himka or Peter Himka. He has the entire file of his father-in-law, of the period that his father-in-law was working for Heinrich Himmler as the editor of the main paper in Krakow. Does Chrystia Freeland doesn't know about that? She was the deputy prime minister. She was the finance minister. Of course, she's on the World Economic Forum, and so on. Then one more name I give you of the extremely important position these people have been in. Senator Paul Yusik. Senator Paul Yusik is a Ukrainian Canadian from Manitoba. Now, Senator Paul Yusik, there is a massive a scholarship fund in his name, which is called the Multicultural Award. Senator Paul Yusik in 1963 was the main mover and shaker of multiculturalism in Canada in terms of idea, because in the 1960s, Lester Pearson was engaged in bilingualism and biculturalism. That is the B&B Commission. and they put the matter through. But there was a very strong opposition from the western provinces, from the prairie provinces, that bilingualism and biculturalism, that is English, French, denies the presence of all of those culture from Europe that is neither English nor French. So the Germans and the Russians and so on, but the Ukrainian were the loudest in it, because Senator Paul Yuzik was in the parliament and he challenged Lester Pearson. This is all in the records. And the appeasement, which has become a bad word, but in a political, that has made political negotiation, Lester Pearson agreed with Paul Yuzik that Canada is a multicultural country.
Right.
Now, as you know, I've written a book about this, and I pointed out Canada is a multi-ethnic country. But if you say Canada is a multicultural country and all cultures are equal, then number one, what is the standard of that all cultures are equal? And number two, it washes out, it basically dismantles the founding culture.
So Salim, do me a favor and
it is the Taliban culture. It is the pygmy culture. All cultures are equal, and I've come back to it because this whole thing that is at play begins there with multiculturalism, because multiculturalism was and is the instrument of normalizing everything that we might find reprehensible under the value of the Enlightenment culture. And so there we have it, the normalization process that was on a pause because of the Cold War. As soon as the Cold War ended, well, Pierre Elliott Trudeau is gone, Paul Yuzik is gone, Lester Pearson is gone, but the agenda is there. The agenda then gets accelerated. And so we have come down all the way into, LGBTQ, transgenderism, but also all cultures are equal. So the fascist culture of Nazi Germany is equal to the culture of, in America, the culture of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. We the people, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, equality of individuals, that's equal. The Nazi culture of the superiority of the Aryan race, and so on and so forth, the superior is equal to all the other culture. And so we have the standing ovation given, and nobody questioned it because it has all become normalized.
100%.
So Salim, tell us how Operation Paperclip works into this equation.
It is absolutely part and parcel of it. It is not something aside from it. Look, during the Second World War, the position of the Western powers internally was suppressed. The division was suppressed. In a thumbnail sketch, the Wall Street, the financial capital of the Western world, Wall Street and London, they finance both the rise of the Nazi Party under the Weimar Republic, and they finance the Bolshevik Revolution and finance the Bolshevik when they seized power.
Right.
They finance both the sides.
Right.
All right. Again, the whys and wherefore is complex because First World War ended, the League of Nations happened, and then the punishment that was put out on the German, the reparation, the partitioning, the division, and Germany was emasculated, as if Germany was the sole country responsible for World War I. The revenge was taken by the French, by the British, and to some extent by the Americans. In fact, the argument going all the way back to that period was that some people wanted to deindustrialize Germany, to make Germany a pastoral country, because The rise of Germany meant it would challenge Britain, and Britain and America being connected, ironically, it would challenge America. So they wanted to destroy it. So during the war, it was again the connection of East European refugees in America, among whom there were the Jewish element that was driving the agenda. You had them supporting the Bolsheviks. Remember, Trotsky went from New York to Russia.
Right.
They were here. They were in America. So there was financing on both the sides. So quickly, in the 1920s comes the Great Depression. But the financing of Germany with the rise of the Nazi Party was something so striking. The German recovery became so strong that in the 1930s, the question became that if Germany can rise up so quickly, we can follow the German policy, that is corporate fascism or corporate socialism, and that was the American New Deal. That is the beginning of the interference of the corporate world into the political world.
Yes.
New Deal in America, it was applied in Canada too, with the progressive conservatives and the Liberal Party, and in Britain, it is the Fabian socialists, the birth of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party take over. That was the First World War was the end of the Liberal Party in England, the party that had taken Britain into the war. Coming out of the war, it was over. The Liberal Party of Gladstone and Palmerston and Lloyd George, they never elected another government after World War One. It was replaced by the Labour Party. So what is Labour Party? It is again, corporate socialism.
Well, and this is where we see the convergence of those two ideologies, right? Communism and fascism.
There's no convergence. There are three faces to it. There is New Deal socialism on the one side. There is right-wing fascist socialism, that is the Nazi Party, and then you have the communist socialism, that is the Bolshevik Party.
Right.
And each of this, as you see, is a one world agenda.
And they all want global dominance.
They all want global dominance. The difference between the Nazi Party socialism, remember, it is called National Socialist Democratic German Party.
Right.
So the socialism is from top down, one party top down, by the corporate, which is, in the language of Klaus Schwab, is stakeholder capitalism.
100%.
It is not the capitalism of the corner store mama papa shop.
The free market capitalism.
Yeah, it is not. No. It is the oligarchs. It is the finance capital. All right, so it is top down. What is the difference between that and Bolshevism? It is bottom up. It's the revolution driven by with the help of the workers and the peasants under the proletarian party, and it is from bottom down. But the proletarian party seizes power as one party state, and they are going to impose the same totalitarian values. Both have the same totalitarian value. And now that you can, and now you can see the new world order is self-totalitarian. I mean, who is more totalitarian than Biden? The mask is completely off.
100%.
Behind Biden is, of course, Obama and all of them working, but there it is, out in the open. So the mask, so you ask me what is Operation Paperclip? There was a division. You see, they did not anticipate. They means the corporate world did not anticipate that the war that they was going to promote and they wanted to promote was based upon the ideology of Hitler, that is Lebensraum, that is to attack Russia, to expand into Russia. In World War I, they had tried to do that, the Germans, not Hitler, the Germans under under Kaiser Wilhelm, but they could not complete the job because America got into the war and Germany sued for peace. And so the peace treaty was signed, and that is the Treaty of Versailles, and so on and so forth. With Hitler coming to power in 1933, Hitler had talked about and he had broadcast that his agenda, his ambition was Lebensraum, going east.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? East is where? Where Napoleon went. East is where Kaiser William II went. To head into, because that is the land where the expansion is taking, but that's also the land where the resources are. It's resource rich. The resources are not in Western Europe. It is in the East and it is in the South. America is completely independent. Canada is completely independent in terms of resources. We have the resources, but not Europe.
Right.
So for them, it is eastward. That was the Lebensraum. The miscalculation was because of the genius of Winston Churchill. He was truly a warmongering psychopath genius. He was a complete failure during World War I. People have forgotten that. The reason Churchill was in the wilderness years between the two world wars, that is, neither the Conservative Party in England nor the Liberal Party in England and the new party that emerged, the Labour Party in England, wanted to have anything to do with Churchill. That's why Churchill was in the backbenches.
Right.
Which is what he called the wilderness. Why? Because he was a disaster in World War I. His policies, the biggest disaster was the Gallipoli campaign, where the Australians, the Brits, the New Zealanders, and the Indians were massacred by the Germans and the Ottoman Empire.
Right.
This idea of Churchill to go through the Mediterranean and the Dardanelles into the Black Sea and hit Germany from the backside and take out the Ottoman Empire. Well, that collapsed, totally collapsed. So Churchill, how does Churchill resurface? Churchill resurfaces in the mid 1930s by leading. He's still sitting in the Conservative Party, but he's not in the government. He's simply a backbencher with his name. Of course, he has a distinguished family name. He's a descendant of the Duke of Marlborough.
Right.
So he leads a rump of members of parliament, Tories, conservative members, who are empire loyalists. These empire loyalists, they are the ones who raised the stake in the Boer War in South Africa. They are the ones who say India cannot become independent. They are fighting against that. You know, in India in the 1930s, the campaign for independence is getting stronger and stronger under Mahatma Gandhi. So, and Churchill and his rump is opposed to it. But the biggest issue was Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia was a state created by the American, that is President Woodrow Wilson, in the Treaty of Paris. There was no state called Czech. It is part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. There were Czech people, there were Slovakian people. The Slovaks are Slavs, like the Ukrainians are Slav, the Russians are Slavs, the Serbians are Slavic people. This was part of, just as Hungary was part of Austro-Hungarian Empire, Slovakia was part of it. But Mr. Woodrow Wilson had made his promise, the 14th point, of self-determination and independence of ethnic communities in Europe, that is the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And as a result, Czechoslovakia was created, just as Yugoslavia was created, and so on and so forth. Hitler comes along, and his argument is that we must recreate the Germany that was taken away from us as a result of Treaty of Paris. The Saar Valley, Alsace-Lorraine, the Rhine Valley. He took them back one by one by one by by rebuilding the German army. And now came the question of Czechoslovakia, and he said the Sudeten Germans, that is in Czechoslovakia, they have to be reunited with their mother country. And so that was the negotiation, because no European state was prepared to go to war. So Neville Chamberlain went to Munich to negotiate, and he negotiated and he made peace, and he said, okay, the Sudeten Germans can join Germany. In 1938, Sudeten Germans joined Germany. After that, Austria joined Germany. The Austrian Anschluss took place. So Hitler's whole agenda from a domestic point of view was to re-establish the Germany that had been partitioned after 1918.
Right.
People have to understand that in 1918, when the war ended, it was not a defeat of Germany, it was a ceasefire. No Allied army had entered the German borders.
Right.
You know, so
It was a peace treaty.
it was a ceasefire. It was a ceasefire, and then the Treaty of Versailles was negotiated, and Germany was punished with reparation and partition.
Right.
So Sudeten Czechoslovakia, or Germans reunited with Germany. The man who opposed the conservative leader and prime minister, Neville Chamberlain, who came back, as you know, the famous picture, I've got peace. He came back. Yeah, he had made peace. Because the Czechoslovakia argument was a false argument that had been created by Woodrow Wilson, and he had gone away. But because now there was no Woodrow Wilson, and America was what historians call the isolationist period. They had rejected the League of Nations. Remember, the Republican Party had voted against and stopped America from joining the League of Nations. Americans did not want to have anything to do with the problems of Europe, or to be involved there. So the historians call them isolationists. But for the Americans, that was America first. And so there was an America First Party there at that time. And the Republicans were America First Party. Donald Trump is not the first America First leader. He is picking up where the American First disappeared as a result of World War II. He is now trying to go back to that original America First Party. So the man who attacked Neville Chamberlain in the parliament and in the media ferociously, financed by East European immigrants in England, and a whole lot of them, East European England, were, Jews, Khazarian Jews from the eastern part of Europe.
Yeah.
And the attack was that Neville Chamberlain is appeasing Hitler. And the word appeasement became a negative word. Okay, so this is in 1938. In 1939, now that the Sudeten Germans have joined Germany, Austria has joined Germany, practically Hitler has accomplished his domestic objective of re-establishing Germany that was there in 1918, that had been created by Bismarck. So he had almost finished. There was one item left, and that was the uniting of Danzig, the city of Danzig, which had been given, which was a free city, but was now located in Poland, because Poland was given eastern part of Germany to Poland after the war. And that was called the Polish Corridor. And Hitler wanted that back. And he wanted to negotiate with the Poles that the Poles return it to Germany, just as the Czechoslovakia had returned the Sudetens to Germany, just as Austria had its Anschluss and joined Germany. So this was the negotiation to happen. The attack on Neville Chamberlain, that he is an appeaser, that he is surrendering to Hitler, which was taking place, by Mr. Churchill and his gang in the parliament forced Neville Chamberlain to, in a sense, tell the Polish that we will protect you. You don't have to surrender to Hitler. And he signed a treaty with the Poles, a defense treaty in 1939. Neville Chamberlain signed this treaty under pressure from his own party members, plus pressure from the French, because the French needed the British to contain Germany from the West. And they wanted to have the treaty with Poland. So the French forced Neville Chamberlain to come on board and join with the Poles to say, don't worry, we will protect your back.
Right.
All right? So what did Hitler do? Hitler played his flush, his ace card in diplomatic term. He turned around and reached out to Stalin, and Stalin reached out to Hitler, because Stalin knows that the European leaders are preparing Hitler to attack Russia. So Stalin is preparing his army to fight Hitler, and he's positioning his army on the borders of Poland. Ukraine is part of Russia.
Well, he signed the non-aggression act, right?
Precisely, that's in 1939. So that's what I'm saying. Hitler jumped ahead of Neville Chamberlain and the French by signing a non-aggression pact called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in August of 1939. Once that pact was signed, Hitler felt, well, if the Poles are not going to negotiate with me, I'm going to go in. And so he went in to unite Danzig. And Soviet Union, Stalin sent his army into Poland, and Poland got divided, and Poland got sandwiched. It got crushed because Poles cannot stand up to the two of them. And what happened to Britain and France? Well, they made the promise. They declared the war, but there was no action.
Right.
So from September of 1939 to May of 1940, there was no action, no movement. And then in May of 1940, Hitler turned around and attacked French, and in a matter of 10 days, the war was over. The German army went into Paris. Right? He did not have to worry about his Eastern Front because he had a non-aggression pact with Stalin. And Stalin kept on feeding Hitler with all that he needed in terms of resources, gasoline, wheat, coal, whatever was needed for the war measures, war requirement, Hitler provided it. And then once Hitler had taken over France, he tried to intimidate Britain with the Battle of Britain. That didn't work, but he was sending peace gestures to Britain that, you don't have to fight us, we don't have to fight you, you can keep your empire, we don't have any enmity against us. And a lot of British were in support of that,
Right.
So this is not revisionist history, this is real history. I mean, Oswald Mosley was a member of the British Parliament, a very distinguished member of the British Parliament, who was the leader of the British fascists.
Right.
The king's brother, King George VI, who became the king because his brother Edward had to abdicate, because he married an American woman, a divorcee. So in those days, they forced him to abdicate. Nobody has forced Charles III to abdicate, or Prince of Wales. The same story.
Right.
A divorced woman is his wife. Right? And so on and so forth. But in 1938-39, Edward VIII was forced to abdicate. But Edward VIII was a good friend of Hitler. Hitler received him magnanimously when he went to Berlin, just as Hitler received our own Prime Minister Mackenzie King, magnanimously. Even Churchill. Here, I have his book with me in my library. Great Contemporaries, Winston Churchill. This book was published in 1937. The great contemporaries are all European leaders that Churchill is writing about. And guess who is there? Hitler. And Churchill is full of praise for him.
Right.
In 1937, he publishes the book praising Hitler, supporting Hitler, or acknowledging Hitler's legitimacy. In 1939, he's screaming for Hitler's head.
Right.
What changed? What changed was, again, he's a warmonger. He wants to be the prime minister.
Right.
So he does become a prime minister during the war in 1940, May of 1940. Never Chamberlain steps down because his policy of appeasement has crashed.
Right.
So he steps down like any honorable gentleman would do. But we don't have honorable gentlemen nowadays in the Western world.
We sure don't.
Okay, so we are in a war which was a total miscalculation, an unnecessary war. It could have been all of the demands of Hitler, which was to reconstitute Germany as it was in 1918, could have been negotiated.
Right.
But that did not happen. What happened?
War machine wanted war.
War machine, warmongers wanted war. It was Wall Street, New York that was financing.
Yes.
Both
sides.
IG Farben, Krups, Siemens, Benz, all of these big corporations were being financed out of New York and City of London, just as they were financing Russia. So once the war happens, there is a split, because there is those who support Germany. Allen Dulles, for instance, who later on became the CIA director, who is responsible for the killing of John F. Kennedy. His brother, John Foster Dulles, who became the Secretary of State under Eisenhower. They were the grandsons of Robert Lansing, who was the Secretary of State for Woodrow Wilson at one time.
Right.
So they come from a distinguished family, just as Roosevelt comes from a distinguished family in terms of money and influence and power. Now, Allen Dulles and his brother Foster Dulles were senior law partners in Sullivan and Cromwell. Sullivan and Cromwell is one of the oldest law company in America, based in Wall Street. And Sullivan and Cromwell's principal clients were German oligarchs, IG Farben, Krups, Siemens. So Allen Dulles was dealing with them.
Right.
Was invested with them. So in the war now, you have a split. And the Germans and the Russians are at war after the Operation Barbarossa was launched by Hitler, and that's the war that is actual Second World War. When the war ended, 50 million people were dead.
Right.
But of that 50 million people dead, 28 million were Russian, and somewhere between 7 and 8 million were Poles. So if you add up Russians and Poles, that is around about 35 million. The bulk of the people who died were Eastern Europeans, Poles, Jews and non-Jews, and Russian, Ukrainians and Baltic people and others. 35 million. All right? That was the war. And without Russia, Germany would not have been defeated. But as the interest with Germany was there, the people like Allen Dulles opened the rat line, created the rat line, and that's Operation Paperclip. Leading members of the Wehrmacht, people like General Reinhard Gehlen, General Karl Wolff, who was the deputy to SS Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler, and others. scientists like the rocket scientist Werner Braun, um, finance people, and so on and so forth, low-level cadres, people who had fought or were fighting in the Eastern Front, and therefore they were intelligence people who knew Russia and the situation in Russia. They went through the rat line into Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, but many of them came to America. Reinhard Gehlen came to America. Werner Braun came to America. They were given a whole new identity, and they worked in America. And part of Operation Cliff is those Ukrainians who surrendered to the British and the American army. They were taken out and brought to the Five Eye country. So Operation Cliff is absolutely instrumental in that first wave of Ukrainian Nazis who came to Canada, just as they went to Australia, as they went to New Zealand and England and United States. And so Yaroslav Hunka is part of that first wave that came. The second wave came in the 1950s, and that happened as a result of the de-Stalinization program that started with Khrushchev. When Khrushchev came to power or took power in 1953 after the death of Stalin. It is as part of their own internal jockeying for power, making alliances and counter alliances within the Communist Party and the Politburo, that Khrushchev, who was a Ukrainian Russian and member of Politburo, to get the vote of the Ukrainian Politburo, handed over Crimea to Ukraine, because Crimea was part of Novorossiya, just as the Donbass was handed over. Okay, so this was internal power thing. So in the process of de-Stalinization, there was also, in terms of foreign policy, the effort launched for peaceful coexistence with Western Europe. Germany is the main issue. Germany is divided. There's East Germany and there's West Germany. And Stalin made a deal with Konrad Adenauer, the Chancellor of West Germany, that as a sign of peaceful coexistence, he would release German prisoners and prisoners who had been taken with Germans during the war or after the war, when the war ended in Europe, May 1945, he would release them from the Gulag, that is in Siberia, Kazakhstan, and northern, from the Gulag. And so 100,000 of them were released as a gesture of peaceful coexistence, and among them were Ukrainians. Those Ukrainians who had not been put against the wall and shot when the war ended, because many were shot. But those who were not shot, who escaped from being shot, immediately were sent to the Gulag, and a whole lot of them, when they were released to Konrad Adenauer, came to Canada and again the Five Eye Nations. So it came in two bunches. As a result, we have the largest diaspora of Ukrainians in Canada, in Western provinces. And then the process of normalization of them. That is the normalization of Nazis. What happened on Friday, September 22nd, was a full-fledged process of normalization in front of our eyes. That when you can greet these people openly in the parliament, then everything is normal. Multiculturalism is working, the Fourth Reich policy is working, the one world government is working, agenda is working, rule-based order is working, but there is a big spanner. Russia did not get defeated. They threw everything at Russia, that is the NATO and America, save escalating, at least at this moment, to the nuclear level. God forbid that as the last dice, because the war is basically over. 500,000 Ukrainians are dead.
Right.
Over 1.5 million Ukrainians are wounded casualties. They've lost their limbs, body parts, ruined forever.
Right.
But what is the agenda of NATO? Well, the agenda of NATO, when Zelensky came to New York for the opening of the General Assembly session in September, September 18th, that was the opening, and Zelensky addressed the General Assembly to an almost empty hall. If people have seen the picture,
Right.
he went from New York to Washington to meet the congressional leaders. And in that meeting, Senator Mitch McConnell said to Zelensky, and these are all on record, and I'm reading to you from the American press. This is what Mitch McConnell said to him. He said, American support for Ukraine is not charity. It is in our own direct interest, not least because degrading Russia helps to deter China. So what basically Mitch McConnell is saying, we're paying the Ukrainian to fight to the last man for us to dismantle Russia, and then we will dismantle China. So this is all now exposed. The question is, what do the Canadian people want? They can vote for the same people who have brought Waffen-SS and Zelensky into the House of Commons, who has awarded the members of Waffen-SS with the Order of Canada, made them chancellors of universities, Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, Finance Minister of Canada. So what else do we want? You either declare that Canada is a loyal member of the Fourth Reich, as I've been saying, we have become a vassal state.
Yeah.
100%.
Or the Canadian people wake up and say, we have to fumigate the House of Commons. We have to get rid of all 338 members. We have to begin anew if we want to get back our dignity and a sense of our own prestige and our own sense of righteousness. We have to take it upon ourselves to clean our country.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. 100%.
A
A
complete
complete
enema.
enema.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The media is not going to talk about any of this thing. The media is not going to open these discussions, but the cupboard is open. Now you can see we've had these secrets these are the skeletons in our cupboard that has been hidden for the last 80 years, but now it can no longer be hidden. It's all being exposed. And the Americans are resisting. I mean, the first casualty of the Ukraine war, proxy war, or I might call it the Zelensky curse, we saw played out only this week when the Speaker of the House was removed by a vote that was moved by just one man, Matt Gaetz. He challenged the Speaker. One man can make the difference if there is the willingness to stand up and speak the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
To pull the will out of, the mask out of the face. Matt Gaetz made the move. The Speaker is gone. But I made a list of people who have fallen under Zelensky curse. Matt Gaetz is not, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is not the first, but it is the most important, because now it is very clear that the American Congress is divided about this. Mitch McConnell is now totally exposed. Chuck Schumer is totally exposed. And the American public don't want, or at least half of America don't want to have anything to do with Ukraine. They don't want a war with Russia. They don't want any war. They want the southern border stopped. They want their own economy to grow. they want the America First agenda, that is make America great again under President Trump, which is the same agenda that goes back to Charles Lindbergh, Senator Robert Taft, and others during World War I and after. So it's nothing new. They want to go back to their original principle, And the casualty, here's the list of casualty. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the American Congress, Anthony Rota, the Speaker of Canadian House of Commons, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Britain, he was one of the first casualties. The woman who followed Boris Johnson to become the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, she was the second casualty. The Prime Minister of Italy, Mario Draghi, he fell on the sword on the Ukraine issue when the new Prime Minister, the name is escaping me right now, got elected. You had the Prime Minister of Netherlands, Mark Rutte. He was defeated with the uprising of the farmers, he was defeated. So there's a whole Macron, he's hanging by his teeth with the uprising that went on during the summer, and then the uprising in Sahel, Africa, with Niger and Burkina Faso and all of those West African states that are Francophone states. He's now hanging by the skin of his teeth. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz hanging by the skin of his teeth as the alternative party for Germany, AfD. We had Christina Anderson come over here that Pierre Poilievre would not meet. Well, that party is on the verge of forming a government or forming a coalition if an election is called, and the German economy is totally shattered with the Nord Stream that was blown up by Biden and Victoria Nuland. So you can see that the entire agenda backfired on the question of dismantling Russia, has backfired immensely. And the world, 80% of the world, that is BRICS nation, and countries are now joining them. In August of this year, the annual convention of BRICS took place, and new members were added, and there were 6 new members: Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, Argentina, and one other name is escaping me. United Arab Emirates. So you can see the OPEC countries are joining it. The Latin American countries. There will be more countries joining next year. There's a de-dollarization taking place, and 80% of the world is moving away from the structure of the world that was pushed by these one world people in 1945.
Yes.
And Canadian people have to wake up and ask, what is it that we want?
Right.
Do we have any desire to be a free, independent, sovereign state, or do we want to remain a vassal state of the Fourth Reich?
Right. Well said, Salim. Well, you've done it again. You've educated a whole lot of people, and it's very appreciated, Salim.
Well, thank you. We have to bring this out. People have to learn.
Yes,
people have to go back and reread the history, because we have been living for the 80 years in a narrative.
Yes.
In a narrative.
100%. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll do this again real soon.
Anytime. Just let me know.
All right, my friend.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, such a wealth of knowledge, that guy. He truly is our national treasure. Yeah. I wish I had a memory like he does. It's unbelievable. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for tonight. Share this out, you guys, so other people can listen to Salim's wisdom and tie it up in a nice little bow, so people can understand where we're at and why it's happening. It's all to do with the New World Order and globalism and a global dictatorship. That's where we're headed, and we have to say no. And it's damn time the people get off their ass and start saying no. Which is why I created the March Against Agenda 2030 for November 4th. So hopefully there's people across the country that are making plans to put that on. Anyway, that's a wrap. Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, you bet, Brenda. All right. I will. I'm heading to Camrose on the 15th for a fundraiser there with Bob Leon, Archer Pulowski, and a few others. So if you're going to be there, I hope to see you there. It'll be Camrose on the 15th. I think it starts at 7. So if you're there, I'll see you there. And we have another event coming up in Lloydminster, a town hall that I'm going to speak at on the 27th of October. It's a Friday, so I hope to see a lot of people at that as well. Wonderful success in Live Long the other night. Wonderful success in Nipawin the other night, and also very successful in Big River a few weeks back. So more and more it's happening. More and more people want somebody to tell them the truth because our politicians refuse to tell anybody the truth. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Ciao for now.